We all want a sense of harmony between our hearts and our minds. And when the moon is in Gemini, as it is now, we have a little bit of that opportunity. In this current season, in March 2025, the sun continues to transit the sign of Pisces. We have the moon for the next couple of days in the air sign of Gemini. This energy can be felt bigger than it normally is because the largest planet of the solar system, Jupiter, is also in Gemini. And Jupiter is not just a big planet, it is a big, benevolent, amplifying energy. So when the moon is in Gemini, we can get very trapped in our mental body. It can feel like many different thoughts or the same thought, but 15 different stories, a lot of potentiality and outcomes. And that often happens when our thoughts are like leaves in the wind and they're flying around in every direction and they haven't come to ground. And this is the energetic imprint, the gift of when the moon is in Gemini. We get to see if we can harmonize our heart and our mind by having our thoughts learn with practice, with discipline, to come to ground into our heart space. So this requires, and this is also an aspect of Gemini energy, organization, communication, relating with one another. So when the moon is transiting through Gemini, the process of working with it is indeed that. It is a process, right? It is an art, it's an art or a sequence. It is a few different things that we do to connect our mind to our heart or allow our mind and our thoughts to settle into our hearts and then see what needs to shift from there in our mentality. With regards to communication, organization, making plans, this is also, all of this also falls in the purview of Gemini. So in the shadow, it can be overly obsessing about plans, but focusing on the wrong one. It could be, getting so caught up in saying something that we forget how that lands for another person. And again, this is the whole, since in Gemini, we are interested in transferring energies between one another, communicating energies within one another, we are actually helped with the sun and in fact, a lot of other planets right now in Pisces, because now that the moon is transiting Gemini and the sun is still in Pisces, we now have the opportunity to figure out why we're actually communicating, especially to others, what we're communicating. And that could be revealed to us in these few days in this short season that we have while the moon is transiting Gemini for a few days, amplified by the energies of Jupiter. So when the heart and mind actually does connect, this is where we can learn to flip the paradigms and perspectives that we have. A lot of times we are trying to communicate with another person because we want them to understand us, see us, hear us, align to our idea and our way of doing things. And some of this comes from when, in the last season, when the moon was in Taurus, and if we got very rigid around certain things, when we unconsciously communicate our rigidity, we may have the experience where we receive resistance because no one wants their ideas and opinions shoved down their throats. I don't want that. You absolutely don't want that. And yet, we are often engaged in conversations where we might do that to each other. And so when we flip the paradigm of this, we receive the great gift of the moon transiting through Gemini, which is learning to be in right relationship. And this can be right relationship between our hearts and our minds. It can be learning to be in right relationship between self and other. It could be learning to be in right relationship and communicating what the personality may want, what the ego may want, and what the soul wants. And again, this isn't about denying any one of those relating pillars, but rather about building bridges, right? Because we require our ego and personality to live in the world, to experience the world, to interface with it. And so it is not to say that our ego or personality desires should always have their heads cut off, but rather, how can these desires and thoughts and emotive experiences be communicated and have a relationship with the soul, have a relationship with another person, where the core issue is not, I need you to agree with me. I need to know that, like, I belong here, or whatnot. And again, belonging is exceptionally powerful, but when that becomes the only reason we express, the only undertone of what and how we're communicating, that becomes very obvious. And so I mentioned the steps and the sequence, and this is about the organizing principle of Gemini. Gemini can be very, like, quirky and disorganized, but on the higher octave of Gemini is you have this divine sequence. And it's almost like having a beautiful spiral staircase from our minds down into our hearts, and in fact, from our hearts spiraling back up into our minds. And when we are in right relationship, we then sort of put down defensiveness, our battle axe and our shield. And here, from this place, we can find beauty in the lesson of opposites. So Gemini, and again, in Gemini, when the moon is in Gemini, and this is a thing that is heightened, not only because Jupiter is also in Gemini, it is also heightened because the sun is in Pisces, right? I mentioned a couple of videos ago, the symbol of Pisces is two fish swimming oppositionally. The symbol of Gemini is two people often looking at each other or looking in opposite directions. Classically, they're two faces looking at each other. One of the other symbols of Gemini I've seen is the masks of Dionysus, the theater masks, right? Like the masks we wear in different scenarios and situations, also an aspect of Gemini. And so these mental energies, the thoughts, the perspectives, the sequence of connecting to our heart and our mind so that we relate to one another, all of this falls in the purview. And it's heightened by the sun in Pisces because, again, Pisces is a water sign. And so this is bringing up the invitation of truly taking a step back and looking at all our relationship as mirrored aspects of each other. Alternatively, this analogy may help some of you. If you were to look at your life as a grand stage, and you are the main character in your own life, every other person is a character in your life. And if we look at the shows and the movies that we love them because the main character has experiences and learns about themselves, changes something, goes on a hero or heroine's journey, realizes something, loves something, fights something, surrenders to something on their journey. That's why we like movies and shows and books and art and theater. And so this is the whole masks of Dionysus, right? Like, if you are the protagonist of the theater performance that is your life, every character has meaning, has purpose. And Gemini, because of its sort of lighter, delightful, trickster nature, can stand as the audience member and revel in the theatrics that are happening in our own lives. It is possibly the first time in the wheel of the zodiac that starts in Aries where we are enjoying the relatedness, the ability to relate to others, but we get to experience it perhaps with some neutrality. That becomes difficult for us when so the challenge here is we may not be able to take a step back, and we're so engrossed in our identity that we are not able to see others as like other characters or reflections. We're not able to see the beauty, the learning, the teaching. And this is because we are over-identified with our masks, which is why this notion of the theater masks, the masks of Dionysus, are also very commonly associated with the Gemini sign. It is asking us to look at not only our masks and the masks we wear through our day, not as a bad thing or a way of falseness, but that we actually, regardless of what mask we wear and why, we're actually taking it off to reveal our true self and our true nature. So this might be the relationship between our personality and our soul, where our personality is putting on all these masks, but the soul is the face, the expression, the one that communicates and makes the choice that, okay, I'm going to my work, so I'm going to put on this mask. I'm going to, have a romantic dinner with my partner, and this is the other mask. And again, the point of the masks is not artificiality. It can feel like that, but these are masks that actually where the soul supports the personality in refining its how it is communicated, how it is expressed. And so if the mask analogy doesn't work for you because for you masks are false, that is also fine. You can absolutely use the mirroring analogy. The work here is to not get overly identified with any one aspect of ourselves. Oftentimes, we get overly identified with ourselves as I am a provider. I am a mother or a father. I am like the CEO of my business. And that is great. And yes, absolutely. But it is one aspect. Being an air sign, Gemini is many things. It is the expression of our manifold nature. And a lot of times that has to come back into alignment, come back into our heart so that we remember that the heart and the soul lead the way. So this energy might feel very big simply because of the dynamic between Pisces and Gemini, and of course Jupiter being in Gemini amplifying it for a lot of us. But the invitation is actually very sweet, very grand, and offers an element of play. So while the moon is in Gemini season, if you're choosing to watch a show or a movie, or just, even however you're engaging with like reading or art or even watching a play, see if you can remind yourself or see if this is an inner activity for you, where if you are the main character, the main protagonist of your theatrical performance that is your life, what can you learn about the dynamics of all of the others? What is there to be revealed? What is Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? What is the grand arc of your character? And how is it that you are navigating these relationships? How are you communicating? And what is the essence between the heart and the mind that is already being communicated? So that is the energy of the moon transiting through the sign of Gemini in March of 2025 as it is coming through me. And I hope this supports you on your journey through the formless and the unconsciousness that is the sign of Pisces. I'll see you next time.